welcome back to the Behind the Harvest podcast on a special Sunday edition on July 6th. We're so glad you decided to join us, and today it's going to be me and Chase. If you would do us a favor, subscribe, share, and like. And I think you will find this podcast very helpful. Maybe not just for you, but you can also send it to people. But beware, if you send it to someone, they may get the wrong message.
Might be a little passive aggressive if you send
Maybe passive aggressive, but hopefully it will be helpful. Because today we're going to just kind of talk a little bit about self-awareness. We're going to talk about growing. We're going to talk about hurts, habits, hangups, and maybe a passage of scripture to help us with those. And so it's glad to have you back, Chase. You doing well?
I'm doing great.
By the way, we, from a fashion sense, we decided to intentionally show you our contrasting styles.
I dressed in my true Sunday morning outfit just for y'all, since this is going out on Sunday, so y'all can see.
Yes.
And he's in his Sunday morning outfit as well.
I'm in my like everyday summer outfit. Like, I'm just not going to be bothered.
And I would wear this to the grocery store, so I'm not.
So anyway, we're glad you're here and grateful for that. So we're going to talk about, this idea of self-awareness and how we don't really talk a whole lot about it in the church.
Right.
Right. You don't have a whole lot of sermons on it.
Yeah. We do to a certain spiritual degree, but what do we do with that when we leave?
So it's like the layer, it's like, we challenge people to pray and we challenge people to connect with God. But then what do we need to do? Why do we need to do that is one of those things where I don't think we typically go in depth about why we need that connection with the Lord personally. Yeah. Right? We talk about having challenges with other people, but a lot of times we don't want to internalize our own growth. Yeah. Right? I heard a counselor on a podcast talking about it, about Instagram engagement. And she was saying that when she posts things on Instagram that allude to the fact that I'm the problem, it gets less engagement than the Instagram posts that allude to the other people are the problem. Yeah. And so I think that it's one of the areas of growth that we can have as church people to recognize that Taylor Swift was right.
It's me.
It's me. I'm the problem. It's me.
Yep. I got that reference.
I know you did. And some people will get that reference. Some people won't. Yes. So I think that's really where we want to go to. Yeah. Right. And talk around that, and it's the thing that I say to my kids all the time, and it's the thing that I try to think about is, it doesn't matter what happens around you, it doesn't matter what happens to you. Yes. It matters how you respond. Absolutely. Because you can't control all the other circumstances. Right. You can't control all the other people. Right. You can't control if he's in a bad mood or she's in a bad mood. You can't control whether they talk to you or whether they don't talk to you. You can't control if they post something about you or they don't post something about you. You can't control it.
Well, I think in that vein of we don't talk about it in church a lot is what we're saying. The practical elements of how do you deal with that, which is what we want to discuss today. Yeah. But we say pray about it, stay in prayer about it. But God wants you to be able to actually deal with it and not just talk to him about it. He wants to give you tools to say, how can I deconstruct this bitterness that I have or whatever the situation is. So
because he's never going to miss, we were talking about this before, God's never going to miss an opportunity to change you.
Absolutely.
Or to grow you.
Yeah. Even in the minor things, or that we view as minor. Someone says something that maybe you took it wrong and maybe they said it with intent to be rude or whatever. But how did you receive it, and are you going to sit on that for a long time?
Yeah, and how are you going to allow that to affect you?
Yes, exactly.
Right? I mean, because you and I know, being in ministry, being in leadership positions, you're always every day, every Sunday for sure, you are opening yourself up for other people's criticism.
Yeah.
Other people's second guessing.
Yeah.
Other people, I didn't like that. Well, you could have preached this better. Well, I didn't really like that song. Well, it was too loud or whatever. And like, for us, we have to constantly challenge ourselves to do the work.
Yes.
To be able to receive that, hear that, engage with that, but not become bitter and angry and frustrated.
To just say, okay.
We appreciate your passion.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
So basically, if you're watching this and you ever come to us with something and you hear, I appreciate your passion or thank you for sharing.
Just know
we're going to leave it right there.
That's probably where it's ending.
That's right. That's right. All right. But it's so important because it goes back to we're the only person we can control.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We're the only person that we can control. We're the only person that we can actually do the work on. And it's true that we are a part and have been a part of every poor decision we've ever made. We're also a part of every poor reaction that we've ever had.
Yeah.
We are the common denominator.
Yes.
Always.
Indeed.
Right.
Yes.
So that's what we want to talk about because we really don't talk about in church. And a lot of times in a 35-minute sermon where you have your most captive audience, you don't have time to necessarily go through all of this.
Right.
But that's what's great about podcasting.
Yeah.
But there are some things that are in our life that we're going to talk about that are reasons for why we respond the way we respond, reasons why we see things the way we see them, reasons why we perceive things the way we perceive them. And some of these things are things that have happened to us in our life. Some of these things are just part of our personality and how we see the world, because we all see the world differently. And some of these things are things that keep us hung up, if you will, and that we have to be aware to get over, right? So we're going to work through these, all right? They are called hurts, habits, and hangups. Okay, so Chase, I'm going to go through these. You ask any question you want as we go through. All right, so let's talk about the first one. And the first one that we're going to talk about is hurts.
We've all got them.
Yeah, that's right. A hurt is any life experience that has damaged or wounded your heart. Okay? It's an offense that in some way crippled.
We've all got those.
And we've all got them, right?
Yes.
We've got them, parents, family members, friends, life circumstances, bosses, job losses, losing people, like heartbreak, heartache, right? And what hurts do is they cripple your ability to deal with the world around you in a healthy way, right? Because it's twisted your view of yourself, twisted your view of other people, twisted your view of God. And so here's a list that I've found. Some things like abandonment, abuse as a child by either an adult or a spouse or an employer, maybe a church, betrayal, a dysfunctional family, right? You had some sort of issue among siblings, or there was a divorce, or there was some sort of alcoholism or drug abuse or something like that. Being neglected, feeling rejection, someone cheated on you, or affairs, or unforgiveness. And so these are these hurts that distort your view of the world, of others, and of God.
Yeah.
Right? And we all have them.
Yeah.
We all experience them. We experience them to certain degrees. All right? But it's all about how we do the work to gain healing over them.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's one aspect. That is a hurt. Right? The other is a habit. Habits. They tend to be unhealthy patterns that often start as a perceived remedy for a problem in your life, right? They are repeated. They are default scripts that you run to when things get tough. All right? So it's something that if you were to take your life and zoom out and look at certain circumstances, that there would be a pattern of how you behave when said something happens.
Yeah.
Right? They're just a habit. So it could be you run to alcohol or drugs. It could be eating disorders. It could be gossiping about other people. It could be that you run away. When something gets difficult, you get yourself in isolation. I know I see this even in one of our boys, Ethan. If he gets in trouble, he immediately runs away. Right? He wants to get off into the corner. He wants to run away. So what do I have to know? He has that habit.
Yeah.
We have to break that habit so he understands that when something happens that he doesn't like, he can't just run away from it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that could be a problem. One of the things that we see, especially among teenagers, is self-harm. Right? In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cutting, right? Abusive behavior, even negative speak to yourself, right? Spending. You get stressed and you stress shop.
Yeah.
Right? Or you get stressed and you pour yourself into your work. Like all you worry about is your work and you become a workaholic. So these are habits. And if you're listening to this, you probably already know what your habit may be, right? I do know for me, I kind of am like Ethan a lot. Like if something stressful going on, I like to I like to isolate a little bit. I like to get in my thinking and my feels, right? And I know it's not always a productive behavior, right? So those are habits. And then we have hangups. These are roadblocks that keep us from progressing further in God's plan for our life, right? These are bent thinking, unhealthy attitudes. I'm going to give an example. I had a really good friend of mine who was brilliant, brilliant, working on a PhD, and he had one of these habits, one of these hurts in his life. And what happened though is he had same-sex attraction, and because he couldn't get past the anxiety, the worry, his intrusive thoughts, right, about did God love him? Were other people going to love him if they knew this? He was never able to finish his PhD. One of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. Sweet, really loved God, just really struggled with that. So these are hangups, right? Anger, anxiety, arrogance, body image issues, bullying, codependency, like always having to need somebody else or whatever. Fear, right? I've had moments in my life where fear has really gripped me and made me not want to move forward. That's what fear will do. It will keep you stay in the same spot, right? A lack of self-control. People pleasing, materialism, laziness. So these are hangups, right? These are those roadblocks that prevent us from progressing in furthering God's plan. So you've got your hurts, you've got your habits, and you've got your hangups that a lot of times it's like it's summertime. So if you're in your car and you have on sunglasses, you got the air conditioning going, you hop out of the truck, and immediately what happens to your glasses?
Fogs up.
They fog up. So these things, hurts, habits, and hangups, can fog up our glasses, so to speak, the way we see and perceive people, circumstances, and God.
Which ultimately clouds your purpose.
That's right.
It blocks that.
Yeah, it blocks your purpose, right? They're going to prevent you from that purpose, right? They're going to prevent you from moving forward on that purpose. They're going to prevent you on having wonderful, long-lasting, vibrant relationships.
Yeah.
If we don't do the self-work, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we tell people to pray for the situation. Pray for the person. But what we really also need to be doing is praying that we get changed.
And I think it's specifically praying, God, don't let me get stuck in this situation. So moving on the topic of hurts.
Yeah.
And I think this is really important to know the difference between of acknowledging the hurt and the pain that you're in right now versus living the rest of your life with it.
Yeah,
or getting so stuck in that you can't function without bringing it up or whatever. Because, I mean, there's things that we experience, like you mentioned, an affair, or you get, betrayed at work, or what someone promised you something and they gave it to someone else, or what have you.
Yeah.
Like, how do you acknowledge, like, this is going to hurt for a little bit, but I got to work through it? Like, what would you say are some practicals to?
Yeah.
Okay, this hurts right now, but I don't want to get stuck here.
Yeah. So it's I'll take you back. This seems like a trivial example, but I think it'll make sense. When I played sports, and I would roll an ankle or jam a finger, one of the things that I knew is that initially it was going to be tender, it was going to be swollen, and it was going to be hurt. And the tendency would be to not move the finger, to not play on the ankle, right? To not sit there and do your ankle roll exercises the next morning when it's swollen, because it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
But what I also knew is that if I didn't do those things, it was going to hurt longer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I had to do is recognize that if I wanted to move on beyond the hurt, I needed to do the ankle exercises even though it hurt. I needed to get up and walk on it even though it hurt. I needed to pop the finger out and wiggle it even though it was going to hurt.
Yeah.
Because if I did that, it would hurt for a lesser period of time.
Yeah.
All right. So hurts are the same way. Right? If you can think about it, hurts leave these wounds in our heart, on our emotions. And when you have a wound, when you push on it, it hurts. Right? So what happens is when these hurts leave these scars, when we interact with people and circumstances and situations, whether they know it or not, they're pushing on that hurt.
Because something could remind you of the hurt. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's an open wound.
Yeah.
All right. So when we're talking in spiritual terms, okay, what we have to recognize is the only individual that can heal the wound, that can sew it up, is the Lord.
Right.
So what we have to do is take these hurts and we have to take them to the Lord and say, hey, and this is painful.
Yeah.
All right. I've been working through this, and go to the Lord and say, Lord, why am I the way that I am? And sit with Him. But we don't teach people to sit with the Lord. We teach them to pray and then get up and go.
Get up and roll. Yep.
But to sit with Him in a journal.
And listen.
And listen and have Him begin to bring up these moments in our life, right? And say, you're this way because this happened. And you're this way because this happened. And you're this way because your mother talked to you this way. And you're this way because your boss treated you this way. And you're this way because this was done unfairly to you.
Yeah.
And when these things were happened, allow Him to then begin to sew them up by letting Him speak life and identity over you.
Yeah.
That even though these people did this, I still had fearfully and wonderfully made you.
Yeah.
Right? Perfect example. I was sitting and doing this with the Lord in a hotel room in Ohio, and He was bringing up some stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's painful, that's painful, that's painful. But He started sewing it up because He reminded me, son, when I made you with joy. And that changes everything. When all of a sudden you realize that person, my dad was broken, or my mom was broken, my grandmother was broken, my boss was broken.
Yeah.
God didn't necessarily want me to go through that, but He used it to get to my heart. But when I was going through that, it never changed how He saw me.
Yeah. He
fearfully and wonderfully, He loves me. He wept when I went through that because He didn't want His son or daughter to go through that. That heals some stuff.
Yeah.
That changes your perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Because all of a sudden you recognize, wait a second, the one who created everything with his breath had joy when he made me.
Yeah.
I don't care what they said.
Right.
I don't care what happened. He had joy when he made me.
Yeah.
Whoa. That changes a whole lot.
Yeah.
And it begins to sow
Yeah.
and heal, right? So practically, it's like we take the hurts to the Lord and say, why am I this way? Right? David said it this way, search me and know me and show me, are there any wrong things in my ways? Search me and try me.
Yeah.
So we go to the Lord and say, search me and try me. Why am I this way? And he begins to bring them up, and we begin to give them to him and say, but, right? And go through that and allow him to begin to heal. It's the same way as if you have a sprained ankle, right? You don't just sit on it. It's going to hurt longer. It's going to stay swollen longer. It's going to be tender longer. But if you go through the pain for a short while, it'll get healed and it'll be back up rolling again.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So we have to take these things to the Lord and let him begin to really mend these and sew these things back together, because then what happens is when somebody pushes on it, when he's healed it, it no longer hurts like it did. You might be able to look at it and be like, that wasn't the right response. I didn't like that, but I'm not going to be angry and wounded and bitter and unforgiving toward that individual. I'm just going, okay, whatever.
Well, I heard someone say one time, when God heals your heart, you'll tell the story differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely different perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Changes your perspective.
Yeah.
When you go through a betrayal and you take it to the Lord and he says, but son, this is why I made you go through that.
Yes.
You're like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I can be good with that.
Yeah.
I'm cool.
Yeah.
I can. Now, here's the other thing. Let's be realistic. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be situations that pop up and there might be a little sting from now and then.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Or that, if you've ever broken something, right, you get healed from it, but like if it rains or the weather changes, it's a little sore,
some pain.
Especially when you get old, right? It's a little sore, but you can still function and operate well.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to have these moments that take you back and you're like, ugh.
Well, you operate with a peace that I don't understand why it had to happen that way, but I know God has a plan for that.
That's right.
And I can be at peace with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You can be at peace with it.
Yeah.
So your body's going to carry the wounds.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't have to be open wounds.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? They can be healed wounds.
Oh.
Right?
Sorry, I just had a thought.
What was your thought?
There was a song, and sorry, I stepped out of Chase on camera mode and stepped right into Chase off camera mode.
Just be Chase off
There's
camera.
A song, y'all remember the group Point of Grace?
I think so.
I know Sarah would know who they are, but they were popular in around with Avalon and all those guys.
Okay.
But they had a song, and another group did it not too long ago, but it's called Heal the Wound But Leave the Scar. And it's specifically talking about sin, and it starts out saying, I wish that I could rewrite the past and change all those things. But I think the line is, it's the memory of the place you brought me from that keeps me on my knees.
Yep.
And then it says, even though I'm free, heal the wound but leave the scar, as a reminder of how merciful you are.
That's right.
That's
right.
Scars have a story, and I've heard people liken it to, if you talk to your dad about a scar he has, he could tell you about a fishing trip when he was 12 and, got hurt riding bicycles or whatever.
That's right.
A scar has a story, and it might be a painful story, but it has a purpose.
It has a purpose. He doesn't waste anything.
Yeah, exactly.
We waste it.
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't waste it.
But he uses that.
He uses it so
much.
And
in the moment, you're like, I hate this. And even after the fact, you're probably like, I hate this. But,
No, it's true. Yeah, you hate it. Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
That's right.
And I believe that.
That's right.
So we've talked about hurts. Let's talk about habits and hangups.
Yeah.
Our two other H's to our
I know,
3-point sermon today. So we've discussed this off camera, but habits are kind of the way that things that we use to cope with hurts.
Yeah. They're like rehearsed patterns of our behavior.
And typically happen every time after a hurt.
Yes.
That,
Yeah, if you're perceptive of other people, right? You will actually be able to know and see their patterns.
Yeah.
And those are their habits, right? It's like defense mechanisms in a sense.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like that wound that's open. Yeah. When something hurt, we're going to do everything we can. Right? Like if you have a wound or something or a scratch, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Be careful. I just scratched my.
Or this time of year, a sunburn.
A sunburn, right? Please
don't pat me on the back.
Right? Don't pat me on the back. Don't give me that big hug or whatever. So that's the way.
And
that
it kind of helps you to not condone necessarily, but understand the behavior.
Yeah.
Like of why someone reacted that way, especially when you know them. And you know the hurts,
That's right. Yeah, so it's like, it's not a means of justification.
Yeah.
Right? It's a means for understanding.
Yes.
And it's a means for the people who are experiencing these, if we see them and recognize them, it's actually an invitation to extend grace.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that.
Yes.
Because sometimes people's habits and hangups, they rub us the wrong way, or they're inconvenient, or they're frustrating, or they're like, why do we have to go through it?
Yeah.
Why are they acting like this again? But if we're going to the Lord and praying and saying, Lord, help me see them, see that situation with your eyes and with your heart.
And how would you handle it?
Yeah, it's an invitation to extend grace.
Yeah.
Right, to that individual, because we're like, wait a second, there's something that happened to you that we didn't cause.
Yeah.
Sometimes they respond to us like we caused it.
Yeah.
And that actually makes me very sad.
Yeah.
But it's an invitation to extend grace, to say, man, I'm looking at it through the Jesus' lens, and I'm like, man, that stinks that you have that wound.
Yeah.
Now, you need to get better.
Right. Let this be the last time.
But there's a little bit of grace there.
Yeah.
So like if you think about habits, right? Like when like let's talk about like an eating disorder or something like that, right? It's just a way to bring comfort to something. Right? You have a bad day. So you go and get cookie dough and just start eating raw cookie dough. Now, we know ultimately...
I'm about to diagnose myself right now.
Ultimately that is not a great decision long term.
Right.
But in the moment, emotionally, it's like a way that we can cope and make ourselves feel a little bit better.
Well, and you could also, both extremes of that, but people who shy away from any kind of sustenance in a sad or stressful situation, and then you're having health problems.
That's right, having health problems. Or you know what? I'm just having a really bad day. I want to go buy me something.
Oh, yeah.
Right? These are habits that...
I don't need a bad day for that.
Yeah, some of these like drugs and alcohol abuse and some of these kind of sexual, immorality and stuff like that, they're like big deals.
Yeah.
But some of these things are...
We probably don't really view as a problem.
Right? Because we can take something like gossip.
Yeah.
And spin it to make it spiritual.
Prayer requests.
A prayer request. Or I just need to process this with you.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We have abused the word process in the church the last 5 years.
And it's great to have community around you.
Yeah.
But when we have to process something about someone, we can go to the Lord and say, God, this person today made me blank.
Hear me and hear me well. Sometimes, I heard someone else say this, I'm not taking credit, but you do not need to vent, you need to pray.
Yeah, you need to pray, or you need to vent to the Lord.
Yes.
You can vent to Him, and I don't think we teach people that in the church. Like, it's like, oh, Lord, you're so holy, and we got to present this. But you can just go to the Lord and be like,
with him.
I'm mad.
Yeah.
I need you to do this, or this person said this, or did this, or didn't do this, and it hurt me.
Because how else are you going to be angry and not sin?
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
Come on.
That's right. So, a lot of these kind of things, when you talk about these habits and you think about hangups, if you meet someone that's incredibly arrogant, okay, now I'm not going to go and be, they're a narcissist, that's thrown around, but someone who's very arrogant.
Yeah.
One of the things that you will find with extremely over-the-top arrogant people is that they're fragile. The arrogance is a defense mechanism.
It's a covering for
right? For covering up and not disclosing the heart and insecurities that they have, right? Yeah. That's sad. Again, it's an invitation for grace. Like when I meet someone who's extremely arrogant, like that's an invitation to like, man, that must be really, really sad to live a life that with that type of fragile self-worth.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
It's really sad. Or someone who's very greedy, or someone who's angry all that. Anger, I struggle with anger. It's a defense mechanism. It's like, I can use this to make all this other stuff go away.
Well, because it's like, you're not going to do that to me. It's like a stand your ground thing, which,
That's right. But is that okay? No, it's not okay. It's not okay. It's not honoring to the Lord. And so when we're talking about this process, when we're thinking about healing, where we want to begin to point in our trajectory into the end goal is that when we get squeezed, what comes out of us are the fruits of the Spirit.
Yes. Because God forbid you respond in a poor manner to an unbeliever. What does that say about the God that you're serving?
That's right.
To them.
That's right. Or you respond poorly to a family member or a close friend.
And sever that relationship.
That's right. I know a person who has had a friendship for like 50-something years.
Yeah.
And there was this thing that happened with them. She responded in a way because of a hurt.
Yeah.
Okay? And now that friendship's broken because that person couldn't understand what she was trying to communicate to them about what they did that triggered her.
And all they see is the response.
That's right.
So they're like, well, I don't want to be nowhere near that.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's right. So, look, these things, so it's like the hurt is the thing that happens to us. A lot of times the hang up, the habits are the ways that we respond to them when we get squeezed. And some of them are very apparently detrimental. Some of them are not. They're subtle in how detrimental they are. But we want to move to, if you think about, and you say, hey, in the next 5 years, where do I want to, instead of where do I want to be financially, where do I want to be professionally, when I get squeezed, I want to be more patient. When I get squeezed, I want to have more peace. That only happens as we become self-aware. That only happens as we spend time with the Lord. And the scripture that I want to use that I think is really a fascinating thing is Paul in the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. And he says this starting in verse 11. He says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. Okay? When I became a man, I gave up my childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been, and here's the thing, fully known. So part of the process that you and I are talking about in order to combat these, I think starts with the discovery process and being curious of saying, I want to fully know me. Like, I know me, but I want to fully know me. I want to know the hurts, the interactions, the disappointments, the betrayals, all of those things that have shaped my view of myself, of God, and of others.
Yeah.
And I want God to begin to search me and try me. I want Him to begin to try my thinking.
They don't want to talk about that.
No, we don't want to talk about that.
I don't want to talk about that.
I want Him to search me and try my thought processes, because here's the thing. So many of us have gotten to a level or a period of time in life being a certain way, but there comes a point where the certain way that we were to get to a certain point is no longer acceptable. In the area of your spiritual growth.
My God.
And that we have to begin to go to before the Lord and say, okay, my hurts, my habits, and my hangups, I need to fully know them. I need to be fully self-aware of them.
Yes.
And one by one by one, I need you to begin to transform them.
Yes.
I need the healing of my hurts. I need the transformation of my habits and my patterns. My patterns need to be changed.
Yes.
And I need redemption for my hangups so that I no longer walk in those things.
My God.
So now when I couldn't forgive, now I can forgive.
My God.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
My Lord.
Now when I was afraid, now I have courage.
Yes.
Right? And God, I need you to begin to work on me.
Yes.
And it starts, I think, with those two words at the end of that Paul writes, is to be fully known.
Yeah.
Fully known by God and fully known, fully self-aware of myself.
Yes. Yes.
Because the hardest person to lead in this whole world is yourself. And then Paul writes, and he gives you 3 areas that when I was a child, I spoke like a child. So for a lot of us, we are still spiritual children in our speech. How we speak, I can be the same way. How we speak is childish. Paul's like, but when I became a man, I began to put those childish ways behind me. So I need God to grow me in how I speak to people.
Yes.
How I speak about people.
Yes.
How I speak about Him.
Make it acceptable.
How I speak about myself.
Oh, yeah. That's... Yep.
Sunday in our Timothy Initiative thing, I had somebody reach out in my class and say, can we talk about identity on Sunday? I know it's not what we're... Yeah, sure. Let's talk about identity.
Talk about it.
And we talked about how we have to answer, when we think about identity, we have to answer the theological question first. Who am I in relation to God? Am I a saint or I'm a sinner? When everybody goes through the exercise, like, I'm a sinner, I do this. I'm like, but theologically...
Talk on it.
Talk
on it.
Because of Christ.
Talk on it.
Now we're sons and daughters of the King.
A royal priesthood.
Now we're considered.
My God.
Now we're considered justified. Now we're considered righteous.
Yes.
Now we're considered co-heirs of the kingdom.
My God.
So we talked about we have to understand theologically who we are in Christ, not in ourselves, not in our gifts.
Yes.
But in Christ.
Yes.
And we can't be walking around with an Eeyore complex.
Come on.
So Paul's like, look, you need to grow up.
We are more
in
than
your
conquerors.
Speech. That's
My
right.
God.
You need to grow up in your speech and how you speak of other people, how you speak about other people, how you speak to other people, how you speak about me, and how you speak about yourself.
Okay.
You also have to grow up in your thought process, how you think about things. And in Proverbs 30, it says, don't be wise in your own eyes.
Tell it.
So we have to also mature and ask God, grow my thinking. How am I thinking about this?
Yes.
How am I thinking about that person? How am I thinking about this situation? How am I thinking? Where are those ruts in my thinking that have formed these habits and these hangups?
And they hinder you.
And they hinder me.
Oh my gosh.
Am I thinking with a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset when it comes to finances? Because God has a cattle on 1,000 hills.
God, He don't
Not
need
a
you.
good gift does He withhold.
He can provide.
Right? So Paul's also saying to us, if you want to deal with these hurts and these hangups and these habits, you need to be fully known. You need to ask God to mature your speech. You need to ask God to mature your thought process.
Yes.
So that you begin, what His thoughts are where? Far above ours.
Far above.
So if we're going to think in the terms of God,
we got to step up.
We got to ask Him. God, can I see this situation like you see it? Can I see the solution like you see it?
Yeah.
What is your solution to the problem? Because a lot of times his solution to the problem is something we've never even thought of. Sometimes his solution to the problem is wait. And that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then Paul's like, and I have to mature in my reasoning. How I process things. How I reason things. My wisdom when I'm approaching things.
Yes.
I need God to mature that. Right? So that I'm seeing things differently. I'm processing things differently. And I'm reasoning differently. It's more mature.
Yeah.
Right? It's not as childish. And for so many of us, and I'm speaking to myself too, I'm going through this process, we reason like children. We think like children.
Yeah.
We speak like children.
Yeah.
Like when my kids don't get what they want and Ethan runs away and Micah pitches an absolute fit and Caleb...
Don't say nothing bad about Caleb.
Yes, sir.
Don't say nothing bad about Caleb.
I can't say nothing bad about Caleb. He has his moments, okay?
I don't believe that.
But what we fail to remember is that some of us have never moved beyond that even as an adult. Because the moment that we don't get the result we want, we are told no, we can't do the thing we want. That situation didn't turn out the same way. We pitch fits just like our kids do. So Paul, in the middle of this love chapter, is saying, hey, hold on a second. I don't know that he's speaking directly to hurts and habits and hangups.
But he's saying grow up.
But he's saying grow up.
Yeah.
And he's saying, but in a way that is graceful.
Yes.
Of like, search me, God. That's what David says. Try me, God.
Yeah.
Help me to be fully known in your eyes. And help me to be able to mature and grow in my speech, in my thought processes, and in my reasoning.
Yeah.
Right? So that, you said it right, I can live out my purpose that you created and intended me to live out.
Yes.
In representing you and being healthy.
Yes.
Healthy. This is kind of the best illustration, and I might get in trouble for this, but it is the best illustration. I've talked about my grandmother before, and that whole idea of the pain thing. She had issues with her knees, and I remember saying to her one time, I was probably 16, 17, and I looked at her one day and I said, let me tell you something. I may not have said it like that. I probably wouldn't have said it like that. I said, but here's the deal. If you get up and walk between these two houses, her mom and dad's house, my great-grandparents' house was maybe 50 yards. If you got up 3 times a day and walked there and back, and then came and sat down, did that again, and just challenged yourself a little bit at a time to grow in that. It's like your knee would be healthy, the swelling would go down, and you'd be able to live a healthy and viable life. But if you don't, you're going to sit in that chair, grow bitter and angry in that chair, and die in that chair. She chose the latter. So I'm going to put it, this is how I'm going to close my point.
Let the Lord use you.
We get one lifetime
You're right.
to use for the Lord.
Yeah.
We got a choice.
Yes.
We can either choose to do what Paul says and what David told us and say, search me and try me, and go through a little bit of pain for a little while to grow healthy. Or we can sit there and do nothing and grow bitter and angry and die that way. It's your choice, because we started this and this, right? You can only control yourself.
That's right.
I can only control me. I can't control you. I can't control Mr. Dennis. I can't control Sarah. I can't control anybody else. But I know this, that if I ask God to know me and try me, if I ask God to help me be fully known and I begin to heal, and I mature in my thinking, and I mature in my reasoning, I mature in my speech, I know this, I'm going to put myself in a position to live out my full purpose and potential in life.
Yes.
In the joy of the Lord and be healthy for everybody around me.
Yes.
They can be the mess that they want to be. They can be angry. I'm going to be fine. Right? And so that's really the challenge that we have as followers of Jesus is to sit with him and let him heal our hurts and transform our habits and hangups so we can live out our full purpose for him.
Yeah.
And be joyful.
Absolutely.
Right? And enjoy our life. You get one shot.
Oh, yeah.
You get one shot.
Yep.
And so that's your sermon for the day.
My Lord, we need an altar call. After that,
Where's Leia?
straight up, we
Get
prayer
Leia up in here.
team and somebody get my keyboard. We got to sing after that.
It was fun. It was fun. Certainly hope that this was helpful and
Yes.
Instructive. And certainly hope you enjoyed your Independence Day. Like and subscribe. And if you do share this with somebody, you might want to just give them a little, hey, I'm not sharing this with you. I just think this might be helpful kind of message or something so that they don't get angry and bitter and all that stuff at you.
At least they have the resources to work through that.
They can have the resources to work through it. So we will see you next time. God bless you.